The Drums of Kalumba. In the heart of the Zambian plains, nestled between vast grasslands and ancient baobab trees, lay the village of Kalumba. It was a place of peace and prosperity, where the villagers honored the traditions of their ancestors. Among their most treasured relics were the Drums of Kalumba, a sacred pair of drums believed to carry the voice of the spirits. It was said that when played with pure intent, the drums could summon rain, bring fortune, or even ward off danger. One fateful evening, an eerie silence fell over the village. The drums, kept in the sacred hut of the elders, had vanished. Panic spread like wildfire, for the loss of the drums was not merely theft. It was a sign of great misfortune. The village chief, Mzee Chikondi, called upon the wisest elder, Babu Tembo, to interpret the meaning of the disappearance. "The spirits are angry," Babu Tembo murmured, his aged eyes reflecting the flickering flames of the village fire. "If we do not find the drums before the next full moon, our lands will fall into drought and despair." The villagers gathered in the chief's hut to discuss the matter. Fear and uncertainty filled the air, for the drums had been in their safekeeping for generations. "Who would dare take the Drums of Kalumba?" a woman cried. "Who would risk the wrath of the spirits?" The hunters, the traders, and even the children swore they had seen nothing unusual the night before. It was as if the drums had vanished into thin air. Among the villagers sat Jumo, a young but fearless warrior who had always dreamt of proving his worth. Unlike the others, he did not allow fear to cloud his mind. "I will find the drums," he declared, stepping forward. "But I need the blessing of the elders and the guidance of the spirits." The chief, though skeptical, nodded. "Jumo, if you are to embark on this quest, you must first seek wisdom from the seer of the eastern hills. Only she can guide you towards the path of truth." Before dawn, Jumo set out on his journey. His mother tied a red charm around his wrist, a symbol of protection. "May the ancestors watch over you, my son," she whispered, fighting back tears. Jumo carried with him only a spear, a small bag of dried food, and the determination of a lion. His path led him through the dense Mbale forest, where shadows danced like spirits, and the whispers of unseen creatures echoed in the air. As night fell, Jumo arrived at the foot of the eastern hills, where the seer, Mama Zawadi, lived in solitude. Her hut was adorned with bones, feathers, and symbols of ancient power. She peered at Jumo through the dim candlelight and said, "You seek the Drums of Kalumba, but do you know the cost of their return?" Jumo swallowed hard. "I will do whatever it takes to save my people." The seer nodded solemnly. "Then prepare yourself, young warrior, for your journey will take you beyond the land of the living." Jumo's journey began at dawn, with the rising sun painting the sky in streaks of gold and crimson. Luyando insisted on accompanying him, her knowledge of the old ways essential to navigating the spirit-infested paths ahead. With provisions wrapped in banana leaves and charms tied around their wrists, they set off toward the forgotten caves where the drums were last heard. The path was treacherous, winding through thick jungle, where vines clutched at their feet like unseen hands. Birds fell silent as they approached a clearing where ancient carvings marked the entrance to a hidden chamber. "This is where the last drummer vanished," Luyando whispered, tracing the worn symbols. If we enter, we may not return the same. Jumo took a deep breath. Then let us return only with the drums. Inside the cave, darkness swallowed them whole. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, and something older, something watching. Jumo struck a match, its small flame revealing walls adorned with faded murals of drummers summoning storms and calling upon spirits. At the far end of the cavern, a stone pedestal stood empty. "The drums should be here," Luyando murmured, her brows furrowed, "but they are gone." Jumo felt a strange pull in his chest, as if the drums were calling him from beyond the walls. He turned to a passage leading deeper underground, where echoes of distant rhythms vibrated in his bones. "We must go deeper," he said, stepping forward. Their descent led them into a hidden chamber illuminated by bioluminescent fungi, casting an eerie glow on the stone floor. In the center of the room, a massive hyena skull rested atop an altar, its hollow eyes staring into the abyss. Luyando gasped. "This is no ordinary cave. This is a shrine to Nala, the spirit of trickery and lost things." A gust of wind howled through the tunnels, and with it came a whisper, a voice neither human nor beast. "You seek the drums, yet you do not know their price." Jumo clenched his fists. "If you know where they are, tell us." The voice laughed, a chilling sound that echoed through the cavern. "Find the guardian, and you shall find your answers." The whispering wind led them deeper into the labyrinth, where shadows moved of their own will. Strange footprints, neither human nor animal, lined the path. Luyando touched a marking on the wall. These symbols speak of an old legend, of a guardian bound to the drums, cursed to remain between worlds. As they rounded a bend, they saw him. A spectral figure stood atop a rock, his form flickering between flesh and mist. He wore the tattered robes of an ancient drummer, his hollow eyes fixed upon Jumo. "You carry the sticks," the guardian spoke, his voice layered with echoes. "Then you are the chosen one. But to reclaim the drums, you must first prove yourself." Jumo and Luyando stood frozen before the spectral guardian, his gaze piercing through them like the weight of centuries. "What must I do to prove myself?" Jumo asked, steadying his voice despite the chill creeping up his spine. The guardian raised his spectral hand, and the cave trembled as 3 stone doors emerged from the ground, each marked with a different symbol. A flame, a wave, and a whirlwind. "You must pass the trials of the elements," the guardian intoned. "Only one who understands the rhythm of fire, water, and wind can command the drums of Kalumba." Jumo swallowed hard. "Then I accept." The guardian nodded. "Choose your first trial wisely, for each path leads to a test of your spirit." Step toward the door marked with a flame, its surface warm under his fingertips. As he pushed it open, a wall of heat greeted him, and he found himself in a chamber filled with burning braziers. At its center, a great fire roared, twisting and shifting into the form of a towering spirit. "You dare to challenge the fire!" it hissed. Sweat beaded on Jumo's forehead as the spirit conjured flaming whips, cracking them against the stone floor. "Control the fire, or be consumed by it!" the spirit roared. Jumo closed his eyes, listening not to the crackling flames, but to the rhythm they made. He lifted his drumsticks and tapped them against his palms, matching the beat. As he did, the fire began to sway, slowing in its fury. The spirit's form wavered, its rage quelled by Jumo's steady rhythm. With a final bow, the fire spirit retreated into embers. The first trial was won. Jumo emerged from the trial chamber, his clothes singed, but his spirit unbroken. Luyando embraced him. "The rhythm of fire listens to you now," she said. The guardian gave a solemn nod. "You have tamed the first element. Now choose your next trial." Jumo turned to the door marked with a wave. As it creaked open, a rush of water flooded the entrance, pulling him into a vast underground lake. The air was thick with mist, and at its centre a spirit of water rose, her form shifting between liquid and flesh. "The tide does not yield to the unworthy," she whispered, her voice rolling like distant thunder. "Show me the rhythm of the deep." The water spirit raised her hand, and waves churned violently, threatening to pull Jumo under. He struggled to stay afloat, his limbs growing heavy with exhaustion. "You must listen," Luyando called from the shore, her voice barely reaching him. "The water has a song of its own." Jumo took a breath, closing his eyes. He let the waves push and pull him, feeling their rhythm. Slowly, he tapped his drumsticks against his chest, mimicking the ebb and flow. The waves softened, matching his beat. The water spirit watched, then nodded. "You have danced with the tide," she declared. "The rhythm of water is now yours." The lake stilled, and Jumo swam back to shore, victorious. 2 trials down, 1 remained. Jumo turned to the final door. The whirlwind. The moment he stepped through, a deafening roar filled his ears. He was in the heart of a storm, with wind howling and debris flying in a chaotic dance. At the centre, a figure with wings of mist and eyes like storm clouds hovered, its gaze fixed on him. "Wind is the most restless of all," the spirit said. Its voice carried in echoes. "Can you match its song, or will you be lost within it?" Jumo tightened his grip on his drumsticks. The wind was unpredictable, ever-changing. If he was to tame it, he needed to become part of it. Jumo crouched low, feeling the air swirl around him. He tapped a light rhythm, letting his strokes mimic the shifting gusts. The spirit's eyes narrowed. The wind grew fiercer, lifting Jumo off his feet. But instead of resisting, he adjusted his beat, playing faster, wilder, embracing the chaos. The storm hesitated. For the first time, the wind had met a rhythm it could not disrupt. It had found a partner in Jumo. The spirit landed gracefully. "You have found harmony with the sky," it said. "The rhythm of the wind is now yours." The storm dissipated, and Jumo stood victorious. He had conquered all 3 trials. Jumo returned to the Guardian, his body weary, but his spirit burning bright. "You have tamed the elements," the Guardian said. "Well, now, you are ready to reclaim the drums." He raised his hands and the cavern trembled. From the shadows, the drums of Kalumba appeared, massive, ancient, pulsing with unseen power. Jumo approached, his heart pounding. As he lifted his drumsticks, the drums hummed in response. He struck them once, and the sound rippled through the air like a heartbeat. The cave walls glowed, and for the first time in centuries, the spirit of Kalumba stirred. Awakened by its chosen drummer, the journey home was triumphant. The air around Jumo seemed lighter, charged with the magic of the drums. Luyando beamed beside him. "You have done what no one else could," she said. "You have become the drummer of Kalumba." As they neared the village, the earth seemed to pulse with anticipation. The villagers, who had feared that the spirits had abandoned them, gasped as they saw the drums. "He has returned with the sacred rhythm," Chief Mwansa declared. Hope returned to their faces, and the sound of celebration filled the air. But Jumo knew one final test remained. The drums had to be played before the next full moon, or all would be lost. Jumo stood before the village square, the drums of Kalumba placed on a raised platform. The elders gathered, their expressions a mix of awe and uncertainty. Chief Mwansa stepped forward. "These drums have been silent for generations," he said. "Are you ready to awaken their power?" Jumo nodded, gripping his drumsticks, but as he prepared to strike, a chilling gust of wind swept through the village. The sky darkened, and a voice echoed from the shadows. "You dare reclaim what was lost?" The villagers gasped as a hooded figure emerged, the sorcerer Kamwengo, a man feared for his dealings with dark spirits. "The drums belong to the ancestors," Kamwengo sneered, "and you, boy, are unworthy." Luyando stepped protectively beside Jumo. "He passed the trials of the elements," she said. "The spirits themselves chose him." Kamwengo chuckled darkly. "And yet the drums remain silent. If the spirits truly favor him, let him prove it," the villagers murmured. Jumo took a deep breath and struck the first beat. A deep, resonant sound echoed across the village, vibrating through the ground. The wind calmed, the trees swayed in rhythm, and the villagers fell silent. Kamwengo's smirk faltered. But then, with a flick of his wrist, a dark mist curled around the drums. "You may have passed the trials, boy," he spat, "but the true test begins now." The mist thickened, coiling around the drums like a living thing. Jumo's hands tingled as he felt resistance beneath his fingertips. Kamwengo's dark magic was trying to silence the rhythm before it could fully awaken. "Play!" Luyando urged. Jumo closed his eyes, blocking out fear. He let the lessons of fire, water, and wind guide him. His hands moved, striking the drums in a rising tempo. The beats cut through the mist, dispersing it with each reverberation. Kamwengo growled, stepping back as the magic slipped from his grasp. "This is not over," he hissed before vanishing into the shadows. The villagers erupted in cheers, but Jumo knew the battle had only begun. That night, Jumo sat beside the drums, running his hands over their ancient carvings. The power within them was vast, but he had yet to understand its full potential. Luyando joined him. "You defeated Kamwengo tonight, but he will return," she said. Jumo nodded. "I need to understand the true purpose of the drums. Why were they silenced in the first place?" The answer lay in the oldest stories, ones only the elders knew. At dawn, he would seek the wisdom of the village's oldest storyteller, Grandmother Nkoko, who had lived long enough to remember when the drums last spoke. Grandmother Nkoko sat by the fire. her eyes clouded with age but sharp with knowledge. She listened as Jumo recounted his trials and Kamwengo's interference. "The drums of Kalumba are not mere instruments," she said. "They are the heartbeat of the land itself." She traced a pattern in the dirt. Long ago, our people lived in harmony with the spirits. The drums kept that balance. But when greed and discord took root, the connection was severed. The drums fell silent, and the land suffered. Jumo's stomach tightened. "Then how do I restore the balance?" Nkoko smiled. "By playing not just for the village, but for the spirits themselves. Only then will their full power return." Jumo pondered Nkoko's words as he returned to the village square. The spirits had tested him, but he had yet to offer them a song of his own. He climbed the highest hill outside the village, where the sky met the earth. There, under the full moon, he began to play. The rhythm flowed from him, a melody of gratitude and hope. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the song beyond the hills. Then something extraordinary happened. The land responded. Fireflies danced in patterns, the river hummed, and the stars above seemed to shimmer in sync. The spirits were listening. As Jumo played, a vision filled his mind, a glimpse of the past. He saw the village as it once was, prosperous and vibrant, with the drums echoing through every celebration and harvest. But then the image darkened. A war had come, and in the chaos, the drums had been misused, played not to honor the spirits, but to summon destruction. Jumo gasped, his hands stilling. That was the truth Grandmother Nkoko spoke of. The drums had been silenced not by neglect, but by misuse. The spirits had withdrawn, waiting for someone who would restore their sacred purpose. And now that responsibility lay with him. At dawn, Jumo gathered the village. "The drums were not taken from us," he declared. "We lost them when we forgot their purpose. If we are to restore Kalumba, we must remember the harmony we once had." Chief Mwansa nodded solemnly. "Then let us make amends." For the first time in generations, the village prepared a grand ceremony. Not for war, not for fear, but for unity. Offerings were made to the river, the trees, and the wind. The people dressed in their finest, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jumo took his place at the drums. The first beats were slow, steady, an invitation rather than a command. Then, as the villagers joined in with claps and chants, Jumo let the rhythm grow. The air vibrated, the earth pulsed beneath their feet, and deep within the land something ancient stirred. A soft glow surrounded the drums, spreading outward. The village, once plagued by drought and discord, seemed to breathe anew. Crops that had struggled began to bloom. The river, which had grown shallow, bubbled with fresh life. And then the sky itself responded, a shimmering aurora cascading down, bathing the village in celestial light. The people fell to their knees in awe. Jumo, overwhelmed, turned to Luyando. "It's working," he whispered, but before she could answer, a sharp crack echoed through the air. The sky darkened once more. Kamwengo had returned, his face twisted with rage. "Fools!" he bellowed. "You think the spirits can be swayed so easily?" He raised his hands, and shadows twisted around him. "The drums are powerful, he said, "but even the greatest power can be corrupted." With a flick of his wrist, the aurora above flickered, and the land trembled, not with renewal, but with a force darker than anything Jumo had ever felt. The battle for Kalumba was far from over. A tremor rippled through the village as Kamwengo's dark magic spread. The sky, once glowing with celestial light, turned a deep, menacing red. The river, which had begun to heal, slowed and darkened. Gasps filled the air as the villagers clung to one another in fear. Jumo tightened his grip on the drumsticks. "The spirits answered us," he said. "We must not let fear silence their song." Luyando stepped forward. "Then we play together." One by one, the villagers picked up their instruments, flutes, rattles, and hand drums. A new rhythm began, defying the darkness. Kamwengo snarled, summoning black tendrils that slithered toward the villagers, threatening to choke their music. But Jumo pounded the drums harder, sending vibrations through the ground. The people followed his lead, their rhythm growing stronger, their voices rising in defiance. The earth responded. The trees rustled, their leaves glowing with ancestral energy. The river pulsed, sending ripples of light outward. A powerful wind surged through the village, lifting the dark mist away. Kamwengo stumbled back, his magic flickering under the weight of the music's purity. A booming voice echoed through the heavens, the voice of the spirits themselves. "Harmony must not be broken," it declared. The celestial light returned, sweeping through the land like a cleansing fire. Kamwengo screamed as the light wrapped around him, forcing him to his knees. Jumo felt the spirits speaking through the drums. They offered Kamwengo a choice, redemption or exile. For a moment, the sorcerer hesitated. Then, with a defiant growl, he lashed out one last time, summoning a final surge of darkness. But the spirits had seen his heart. With a deafening crack, the ground beneath Kamwengo split open, and he was swallowed into the abyss. As the darkness vanished, the sky turned a brilliant shade of blue. The land exhaled, freed from its long-held curse. The villagers, overcome with relief, knelt before the drums of Kalumba, their power now fully restored. Chief Mwansa stepped forward, placing a hand on Jumo's shoulder. "You have done what no one before you could," he said. "You have returned the heartbeat to our land." Jumo bowed his head. "I only followed the rhythm of the ancestors," he replied. "It was always here, waiting for us to listen." The drums restored. The village flourished like never before. Crops grew in abundance, the river flowed strong and pure, and the people lived in harmony. Every night the drums of Kalumba played, not as a call for war, but as a song of unity and gratitude. As for Jumo, he remained the village's drummer, the guardian of the sacred rhythm. But he knew that one day the drums would call for another. And when that time came, the next guardian would answer, just as he had. The spirits would never let their song be forgotten. Unlock the secrets of the ancestors. The sacred drums of Kalumba hold the power of the spirits. But when darkness threatens the land, only one drummer can restore balance. Will Jumo succeed, or will the curse consume them all? Find out in this gripping African folk tale of magic, destiny, and courage. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more legendary stories. Turn on notifications so you never miss a tale from the heart of Africa. Comment below. What did you think of Jumo's journey?